Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video where we talk about everything in tech, data, and AI. And in this week, we have a lot of things to cover. And interestingly enough, we have a lot of things about Google. The first one being that the CEO of Google just announced that the Gemini app, which is their AI app, just reached 1 billion users. Now, this is their 14th product to hit 1 billion users. Now, I am not saying that that is not a huge thing, but what I am super curious about is how they know that they have 1 billion active users. If we look at this article talking about this milestone, it says right here, the company has steadily been integrating Gemini across its products from search and workplace to Android and its standalone app. Google's AI mode in search in particular has achieved a lot of success with over 1 billion monthly active users globally. Now, again, I personally use Google. I like Gemini. I think it's a great product, but I'm very curious to see how they're actually doing this. Does this mean that anybody who goes onto Google, like google.com, and asks a question and gets their AI kind of description that they are just known for now, does that mean that they're an active user? Because that just means everyone who's Googling anything is going to be an active user within these parameters. So I'm not exactly sure how they were measuring this. But one other thing to note is that it also says that Google also shared numbers of how people actually use the chatbot, with 63% of Gemini users talking directly to the assistant using the voice feature, and that they're generating over 150 million images every single day. 63% is incredibly high. I mean, I am honestly pretty shocked by that. I would have guessed it would have been like 20%. But 63% is very high. So if nothing else, it's super interesting to see how people are actually using AI, how people are using Gemini. But purely from like a data standpoint, I'm just wondering, are people like actually going out of their way to use the AI functionality within Google, or they just happen to be using it or using the system that has AI integrated into it, and they're counting that as an active user? I mean, as a genuine question. The next thing that Google is in the news for is right here. Google wins bankruptcy auction for Spirit Airlines emails, chats, and documents. That's right, the airline company that went underwater recently. They are selling off bits and pieces of it, and Google won this auction, and they won it for what I would consider a very small amount. It says right here that Google won a bankruptcy auction for the data, agreeing to pay $10 million for the information. Now it says the deal includes 100 million emails and 500 million Microsoft Teams chats, according to a court filing. Now, what are they going to use this data for? You guessed it, they're going to be using it for AI training. It will use the data to improve its products and AI models, which right now, I mean, they're just really pushing their AI stuff. They're trying to train their models. They have their Gemini 3.7 out right now or whatever it is. And so they're going to be using that data to train their models for sure. Interestingly enough, they did specify in here, because I was curious about this myself, the data does not contain any personally identifiable information. They're going to basically de-identify this data before they use it. It says it right here, meaning it won't be associated with individual people, and the buyer agrees not to attempt to re-identify the user. So Google can't go out here and say, okay, this person, Alex Freeberg, is a Spirit Airlines customer. They can't know that information. They shouldn't know that information. I think $10 million is an absolute steal for this data. I guarantee you that Google is spending billions of dollars elsewhere buying data from a ton of other places. This is probably a small, percentage of all the data that they're collecting, but I mean, this is really useful information, especially that 500 million Microsoft Teams chats, because they want their AI to sound really natural and really human. And that's just a great thing to train their data on. So I'm not surprised that they were interested in this data. It's just interesting that Spirit Airlines went under, and now here's Google, buying the leftover pieces and scraps of data. Believe it or not, we have one more story on Google this week, and this mostly affects developers or app developers. It says Google buried rival app stores in their Play Store, and Judge gives them a week to fix it. Now, this is very recent. You can even see right down here. They have to fix this by August 20th, and there are 3 specific interface changes or UX changes that they have to make by that date. It says that the court found specific Play Store behaviors anti-competitive, and Google's own counsel agreed to all 3 corrections on the record. So at least they're like, hey, yeah, we know this is an issue. We probably shouldn't be doing this, and we'll make those changes. If nothing else, that's a good thing. But the fact that they're, putting these things out there, allowing these changes to be made to where specific apps just aren't gaining any traction, even by big players. And you can look into this. I'll have this, down in the description if you want to check this out. It's just really interesting to me. And so some positive things by Google, some, not so things by Google. But Google's a very, very, very large entity. And so again, there's going to be some good with the bad. The last story we have is about Meta. And this article talks about it right here. It says, states take Meta to trial in California in the biggest fight yet over social media harm to children. Now, this has been a big thing for a long time, right? There's a lot of negative effects to social media, especially for kids. And what they're doing on California right now, I'm actually a big supporter of. I mean, there's a lot of harm that can come to children, and they are, at least in theory, totaling as much as 1.4 trillion in damages. And that's a huge amount. And to no one's surprise, it is about mental health crisis and addiction. It says the lawsuit accuses the social media giant of contributing to the youth mental health crisis by knowingly and deliberately designing features that get children addicted to their platform. It also claims that Meta routinely collects data on children under 13 without their parents' consent in violation of federal law. Now, we could really dive into this, but I think you guys are really well aware of how a lot of these things have played out in the past, right? They get a slap on the wrist, they get fined, and then they keep doing it because they make so much money from this, and they kind of get people addicted in social media to where they do it for the rest of their lives. And so they're willing to pay out however much money they end up paying out. I doubt it's going to be this 1.4 trillion. My guess is it'll be like, 50 billion, which is a lot of money. But to these big tech companies, that's nothing. That's just like their marketing budget for quarter four. And so it's no big deal to them. They're going to be, A-okay, whatever they get fined. For our very last story, have you guys heard of Metabase? I have. It's a really cool platform. It's an open source AI analytics platform where you can basically build out semantic layers, business logic, and all these different things. It's all open source. It is really cool, and it's super huge on GitHub. And of course, they have like a paid option that you can get a lot more features for. But this is all open source, which is really, really cool. The unfortunate part of this is that Metabase is in some really hot water over some zero-day exploits with none other than SQL injections. It says right here, a critical Metabase SQL injection vulnerability was exploited in a zero-day attack to breach customer instances in data theft attacks known to Impact Framework and Tally, which are two separate companies. The funny thing is that SQL injections are not new, and honestly, you should be able to really easily not allow that. But somehow they did. And so people are like, hey, SQL injection, that's like the first thing you try when you have access to, API endpoints or, different things where they grant you access to run code. It says right here, the company says attacks can be identified by a post request to API session reset password, returning a 400 status, followed by a successful GET request to API user current. And Metabase warns that the system logs showing these entries have likely been compromised. In my humble opinion, and again, I'm not in cybersecurity, but I did work in IT for analytics, this should not be happening. This shouldn't happen at any company. But it does happen. It still happens. And SQL injections are something that you should be aware of, especially when you're giving access for someone to write code or to write anything into a database or any window where you can write code. They have now since patched this, but of course there are affected users where all their data got taken. Honestly, this is nothing new. It's just really interesting that companies are still getting hit with SQL injections and they're still working. That's the shocking part. So with all that being said, that is all we have for this week. Again, we have a lot of Google stuff. They were just in the news a lot that I was personally seeing, and I am not shocked that they reached 1 billion users. In fact, in this GIF that they used right here from Sundar Pichai, I am not shocked that that is, an AI image. It looks like an AI image. But 1 billion users is a huge amount. That's a lot of people. I mean, that's like, an eighth of the world. It's a lot of people. And so I wonder how many are bots, how many are real people. I wonder how they're collecting that data, how they actually define active user, right? There's a lot of things that I have questions on, and, I guess we just won't know. They just have 1 billion users. But it is really impressive nonetheless. That is a lot of people and a lot of people using their apps and their platform. With that being said, thank you guys for joining me today. If you like this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you next week.